When I was in college, we had a Capuchin teaching us the history of the order. And one of the questions on the exam was, who founded the Capuchins? And there was only one answer. Matteo da Bascio. And the professor would always say to us, when I ask the question, don't tell me he's an Italian barber. When you look at the spirituality of Francis, Francis did not write a rule other than to begin living the gospel of Jesus Christ. That was how the rule came to be found. Francis would borrow some behaviors from the Benedictines. That's why some people, when they came to the understanding that he was borrowing from the Benedictine monks, they began to refer to us as monks, and Francis had to disclaim that very, very quickly. We're not monks, we're friars. The monks take a vow of stability, which means you stay in a particular foundation. Where we have 3 vows, and according to the whim of leadership, you could be stationed almost anywhere. It should come to no surprise, the first organized fire brigade in the city of Paris, they were Capuchins. Capuchins would go where there was a need. But when you're thinking specifically of spirituality, it's gospel, it's Christ-centered, it's a healthy devotion to our Blessed Mother. It was Francis of Assisi who put the crèche next to the Christmas tree. That was not by accident, and it was not a move to take away from the secular celebration of Christmas, but it was Francis' own way of making sure everybody understood it was the only way to celebrate Christmas because of the birth of Jesus Christ. When I was in Assisi, I was in the Basilica of St. Francis, and I was in a habit. The gentleman came up to me and he said, Father, Father. I said, okay. Could you tell me, what was the relationship between Francis and Claire? Well, the thought that went through my mind, I knew I couldn't say it to him because he would not understand that Francis and Claire, after Francis went through his conversion experience, when he came back to Assisi, he realized he wanted the simpler way to live. If I had said to the man, Francis and Claire, they were lovers, it would be a definition of how some people talk now. And that is exactly what I didn't want the man to conclude. They understood gospel life. They understood how Christ really has to be at the center so that we can utilize the blessings and the graces that he gives. Actually, to all humankind. Unfortunately, all humankind does not necessarily respond with the understanding of what those blessings actually are. In order to embrace simplicity, Francis understood what minority really meant. It's like today's second reading, where Jesus, for a little while, is lower than the angels. That's because he became man. And when Jesus embraced humanity, he not only came to bring us salvation and redemption, but he came to show us how we are to live. Now, it was not Francis' interest almost from the get-go to have this elaborate structure which eventually he ended up with. Because when you take a look at, when you walk through the Basilica of St. Francis and then you go down this god-awful hill to the Basilica of St. Clare, it's back to another time. But what really brought me to full attention was the visit Our Lady of the Angels, where inside of that church is this little, basically like a hut. That's the Porziuncle. That's the beginning of the Franciscan movement. And it's gorgeous. Unfortunately, a number of years ago, there was an earthquake in Assisi. The Basilica of St. Francis, which St. Francis himself never ever wanted that. There was another friar who pushed it. That basilica, unfortunately, was damaged. The Basilica of St. Clare, that was damaged. Where the Porziuncle sits in Our Lady of the Angels Church, it's right below the dome. So if that had been the epicenter of that earthquake, that dome would have come down and literally crushed the Porziuncle. Fortunately, that did not happen. The Franciscan way is the way of Jesus Christ. It is no great secret that there are times when Francis would go down the hill to see Clare, and they would commune with God. How are things going, really? You know, like the old mayor of New York, Ed Koch, how am I doing? Well, literally, Francis and Clare would be asking God for enlightenment to understand how they were doing. Were they doing things the way he wanted them to do? To help bring people to salvation, to help people have purpose in life, to help people not be distracted by the many, many distractions that unfortunately are there. For the Franciscan community, both then and now, no one is meant to be excluded. The Poor Clares still remain, at this point in the history of the church, a cloistered community. And they would take the vows of stability, because they don't really move around that much. Francis understood conversion. As we look at Francis, hopefully we understand what conversion really means. Total change. Radical change. You know, here was a man who was born into the lap of luxury, and it brought him nothing but pain. And that meeting of the leper, that really is a powerful changing part. Now, of course, some biographers of St. Francis, they get a little caught with who was the leper? Was it Jesus Christ? Was it that part of the life of St. Francis that still needed the conversion to happen? Which, you know, either way you look at it, when Francis comes back and passes that leper a second time, he has no problems embracing him. He has no problems giving him a hug, giving him a kiss, and giving him whatever he had in his pocket, because he didn't need it anymore. Now, in the time of St. Francis, in order to really help keep things simple, there was a friar in each foundation who had to be the quester. And he would go throughout the neighborhood trying to get food for the friars. And some of the stories are legendary. If you get a chance to go to Rome, there is a church called St. Michael. And attached to that church is a museum. And you see some of the older friars who were questers. And there was one who, he went to somebody who was delivering milk. And he said to the man, could he have some milk for the friars? And the man said to him, what are you going to put it in? He said, no, just put it in my sack. It'll be okay. So, the gentleman put the milk into the sack. And he said to the friar, see, the milk is coming out the bottom. He said, oh, no. That's only the water that you add to your milk. Padre Pio was not the only one to catch somebody in a fib. That's why with the stories with Pio, the one that sticks with me is somebody was going to confession and finished the sacrament and attempted to stand up and walk away. And Pio said to him, are you sure you confess to everything? The man said, yeah, sure. And Pio told him what the sin was that he hadn't confessed to. So you have to be careful. When you come around the big leagues, who you're playing with. There's another story told about Francis. When you live in a friary, at night, say 8:30, 9 o'clock, there's a grand silence. Now what the grand silence means, not only no talking, not only no eating or drinking, it's meant to be quiet until about 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, Francis could hear something coming from the kitchen, so he went to the kitchen. There was another friar who was embarrassed because he got caught eating. What was Francis' response to him? Don't worry, tomorrow's another day. It's not that Francis was cutting corners, but Francis saw one of the greatest gifts of Jesus Christ becoming man. So we have a chance to see what humanity looks like without guile, with vulnerability, and with honesty. And that's really the way of St. Francis. It's really the way of St. Clare. I have never seen it in print, but I don't know if you realize St. Clare's sister, Agnes, would eventually join the Poor Clares. I don't think Francis was really welcomed in her parents' house because he got 2 daughters. And, there are many other stories where people have delayed responding to a call. When God wants you, He'll get you. I don't mean that in a nasty way, but if we could understand what God sees when He looks at us, He doesn't see a group of foolish people. He sees people of a willing heart. And that's really how St. Francis started, how Clare started, and how the movement continues. Dying in the 1200s, this is 2015. I couldn't help but ask myself the other day, what is the ongoing attraction to St. Francis? It's not all animals, but he found a way to offer people gospel living, gospel value. All we need to do is have an open heart and respond in faith. Thank you.